Why did my daughter look at this old photo and whisper, "That's me. That was my life"? As a museum curator, I am a professional handler of ghosts. Not the spectral kind, but the quiet, tangible ghosts of objects, a soldier's letter, a silver locket, a child's worn-out toy. My job is to take these forgotten things and give them context, to piece together the life that surrounded them, to tell a story that would otherwise be lost to time. I work with the echoes of the past every day. I thought I understood them. I never imagined one of them would follow me home and claim my daughter as its own dot. My husband, Alex, is a photographer. Our life together is a conversation between the past and the present, his lens capturing fleeting moments while I work to preserve them. Our world is one of careful documentation, of reverence for the story an object or an image can tell. Our daughter, Nora, a quiet and fiercely observant 7-year-old, grew up in this world. The photograph was one of 100, part of a box, of anonymous portraits from the turn of the 20th century that had been donated to the museum. They were mostly stiff, formal portraits of people whose names and stories were lost forever. I had brought the box home to do some preliminary cataloging. Nora was sitting on the floor of my study, watching me as I carefully lifted each cardboard-mounted image from the dusty box dot. Then she saw it. It was a sepia-toned portrait of a young woman, perhaps 20 years old. She wasn't smiling, as was common for the era, but her expression was not one of passivity. Her gaze was direct, intelligent, and held a fiery, unyielding determination. It was a captivating image. I was admiring the composition when Nora reached out and took it from my hands. She stared at the photograph for a long time, her small fingers tracing the edges of the cardstock. Her breathing deepened. A strange stillness settled over her. She looked up at me, and her eyes, usually so full of childish wonder, held the weight of a long and complicated life. "I remember this day," she whispered, her voice a low, steady murmur that sent a chill through me. She turned the photo back toward herself, her thumb stroking the woman's determined face. "That's me," she said, with a simple, breathtaking certainty. "That was my life." Alex, when I told him later, was fascinated from a photographer's perspective. "It's a powerful image," he said. Of course she connected with it. She's a dramatic, imaginative kid. He saw it as a testament to the power of art. I, the curator, saw it as a terrifying breakdown in provenance. An object with no history had just claimed my daughter. I framed the photograph and hung it in my study, telling myself it was a beautiful piece of anonymous art. But I was really observing, waiting. A few days later, I found Nora standing on a stool in front of it, her forehead nearly touching the glass, talking to the woman in a low, intense whisper. "What are you doing, sweetheart?" I asked softly from the doorway. She turned, her face a mask of adult-like frustration. "I can't remember the word for the new horseless carriage," she said, stomping her foot. "The one that runs on steam. And I have to finish my article for Mr. Albright by morning." Horseless carriage, Mr. Albright, my article. The anachronisms, the sheer impossibility of the statement, landed like stones in the quiet of the room. This wasn't a child's fantasy. This was something else entirely. This was a memory bubbling up through the cracks in my daughter's childhood. Her past life, or whatever it was, began to bleed into our present. She would complain that her play clothes were too restrictive, that a woman can't get any real work done in these skirts. She became fascinated by the smell of the ink from our printer, saying it smelled like the presses. Most telling was the frustration. She was constantly, fiercely frustrated by the limitations of being a child. "I have things to do," she'd say, her small face grim with a purpose she couldn't articulate. "I don't have time for naps." She wasn't channeling a memory of love or loss. She was channeling a memory of relentless, unfulfilled ambition That my professional curiosity and my maternal fear fused into a single obsession. I took the photograph to the museum's conservation lab. Under a microscope, I examined every millimeter of the cardstock, and I found it. A tiny, almost invisible embossed mark on the lower right corner. Gleason Studios, City Gazette Building. The City Gazette was our city's most prominent newspaper for over a century. The fact that the photo was taken in the newspaper building itself was a monumental clue. Was she a society girl being photographed for a story? Or did she work there? Nora's desperate need to finish my article pointed to the latter. I went to the library, to the archives that held the soul of the city. I wasn't looking for a face anymore. I was looking for a name, for a byline. A female journalist in the early 1900s was a rarity, a needle in a haystack of male reporters. I spooled through the microfilm, my eyes scanning the pages of the City Gazette from 1908, 1909, 1910, and then I saw it. It was a byline on a sharply written piece about the city's inadequate sanitation system. It was bold, insightful, and clearly unafraid of angering the city council. The byline read, C.M. Hayes. Over the next few weeks. I found more of her articles. C.M. Hayes wrote about factory conditions. She profiled leaders of the burgeoning suffragette movement. She exposed corrupt local officials. Her voice was a fire on the page. I had to know who she was. I cross-referenced the name with city directories and census records. I found her, Miss Clara Maeve Hayes. Occupation, reporter. The final confirmation came from a Sunday feature edition of the Gazette. From 1911, the article was titled, The New Women, Our City's Modern Pioneers, and it featured a profile on the paper's own intrepid girl reporter. Alongside the text was a photograph, the same one from the box, but this time it had a caption. Miss Clara Maeve Hayes, who is making a name for herself in a man's world, sat there in the dusty silence of the library and wept. I wept for the brilliance of this forgotten woman. I wept for her struggle, her ambition, and I wept for my daughter, who is carrying the weight of this incredible, unfinished life. The article talked of Clara's dream to move to New York, to become a world-renowned investigative journalist. But the trail of her byline went cold in 1912. I later found her death certificate. She died at age 23 in the influenza pandemic of fun. 1918. Her great ambition, her life's work, had been cut short. I now understood my daughter. Her fierce independence, her impatience with the world, her deep, burning frustration, it wasn't a personality. It was an echo. The echo of a brilliant woman who had died with her greatest stories still untold. Nora wasn't haunted by a ghost. She was inhabited by a will, a drive so powerful that not even death could extinguish it. I went home and created a new archive. I printed every article by Clara Maeve Hayes. I wrote down her story, her ambitions, her too short life. I created the biography she never had. I laid it all out on my desk. That evening, Nora came into my study. She saw the articles and photographs spread out before me. She walked over, her eyes scanning the old newsprint. She looked at the picture of the young, determined reporter. She looked at the articles, at the bold headlines and the small byline. A slow smile spread across her face. It was not a child's smile. It was a smile of deep, weary, profound satisfaction. That's my life, she said again. But this time, the words were not a confused whisper. They were a proud declaration, a reclamation. The fierce frustration in Nora has softened since that day, replaced by a quiet, powerful confidence. It's as if, by having her work finally seen, her story finally told, Clara's restless soul has found a measure of peace. But the ambition remains. I watch my 7-year-old daughter as she writes her own stories now, her brow furrowed in concentration. her small hand flying across the page, and I see the ghost of the intrepid girl reporter, her legacy burning brightly. In my daughter's eyes, I am a curator. My job is to preserve the past. But I have learned that some stories don't want to be preserved. They want to be finished. I am Nora's mother, and I will do everything in my power to help her build her own life. But I am also the keeper of Clara's legacy. And I have to wonder, as I watch my daughter's pen move across the page, with a drive that comes from a place beyond time now, that her first life has finally been acknowledged. What incredible story will she tell in this one?